Alright y'all, so here I am back with the follow-up video. On the last video, I came through and told you the guy who was said to be my father was not. Like I said before, he had passed away before he ended up getting the test. So his cousin ended up taking the test for him. We got the results back. I processed it, my feelings in the last video. I mean, it was kind of disappointing, but at the same time, still like hopeful. Still waiting on the Lord, to give me the answers that I've been waiting for, that I've been praying for, that I've been searching. So apparently it's not the time, but I am still hopeful and glad because that means the person who could be my biological father is still out there and still alive. So I am hopeful for that. So in this video, I'll be telling you a little bit about my adoption story. So to go back, so I am adopted, and yes, my entire life I've known that I was adopted. It wasn't no big secret or nothing like that. It was always just out in the open, really, because they could have had a choice to not tell me, but they were really open and honest about it. So my biological family that raised me knew my biological mom, and they know my biological grandmother too. So it was back, I would say, I still now, Black communities were like kind of more communal back then. And so my biological mom was on drugs. They knew my mom back in the 80s when she was a teenager, actually. And so they tried to help my mom out with her just being on drugs and all that stuff. So my mom has 6 kids. I so happen to be one of the middle children. I have 2 older sisters, and then I have a young sister and 2 younger brothers. And so I tried to help my biological mom out, and so they ended up helping her with her kids. So with my older sister, we're trying to take her back and forth, but with me, they got me when I was a baby, since I was 2 months. And so yeah, my adopted family knew my biological grandmother from back in the day, and they knew my biological mom. So they ended up taking me from my biological mom and getting custody of me. So they've been having me since I was 2 months. And then 2 of my older sisters were kind of adopted in the same family but different households. But then my other siblings, they went to different households as well. Excuse me. They went to different households as well. She kept the youngest one of us, which was the baby boy. So she raised him their entire life. So, I mean, I grew up in a really good home. I knew who my brothers and sisters where I knew of them. I mean, it's kind of different with me and my sisters being raised in the same family in different households. So I say me and some of my sisters were raised as cousins, kind of but knowing that we were sisters. My biological mom, I think when I was younger, she could come get me and pick me up. But then after a while, my mom who raised me cut that off for multiple reasons. So she wasn't able to come get me anymore, starting back in elementary. So growing up, it's so interesting too. I mean, just how the Lord works, because even though I didn't have much contact with my biological family growing up. I had a biological auntie who lived literally right across the street. If I step out my door, like, I'm literally facing my auntie house. So I had a biological great aunt who stayed right across the street. And then a few houses down, that's crazy, I had another biological cousin who stayed right down the street, and who literally, we are like the same age. So we went to middle school and high school together. So I think, yeah, that's it's quite interesting. Like, that's wild. So I know different people have different like stories, but I've always knew who my biological mom is, even though we never had a relationship growing up in elementary, middle, high, none of that. I would see her around sometimes because she would come, you know, pick up my older sisters, like, because they would be over my house, like, say, for a birthday party or something like that, and she'll pick them up. So I would see her around, but it wasn't like mother, daughter, nothing like that. So my adopted mom that raised me, I refer to her as mom. My adopted mom who raised me is literally like old enough also to be like my grandmother. Her and my biological grandmother are around the same age, like only a few months apart. So it's, yeah, like those adoptive stories where, you know, raised by an older generation. So yeah, I think now it's interesting. I post-college, post-high school, I started a relationship with my biological grandmother, and I would say post-undergrad, my biological mom kind of started to like try to build a relationship. It's still kind of like awkward, but those are basically like the gist of my story. I mean, I can go more in depth depending on what y'all want to know. If y'all want to know about like, oh, why was it being raised by an older generation? Because in the household that I grew up, it was my adopted mom who raised me, who is around the same age as my biological grandma. But then also too, my adoptive mom and her mom were in the household too. So that's two generations in one household, still being different generations. So yeah, that's just a sample, a little bit of my adoption story. I never had to go through, I know some people in their adoption stories had to go through like the system, had to go on foster care, but that necessarily wasn't my story, because I know everybody's adoption story is different. So I still think that mine is unique in itself. So if you got any questions, you always can drop comments. If it's something that you want me to touch on more, I'm happy to do that too. But stick around too, because on my next video, I know I've been promising that I was gonna give y'all more detail of my ancestry and DNA. So I'm gonna make a video about that pretty soon. And I do have somebody that's a first cousin who I believe is on my father's side, because I can clearly see, I know, you know, by piecing things together, like, hey, this is my mother's side. But I also want to, you know, talk to y'all about that too, about people who pop up as your first cousin, but then also too, like when you're messaging people, you know, it's still at their convenience of how quick they message you back, or whether or not they message you back at all. So thank y'all for subscribing. Keep staying tuned. I got more videos dropping. Thank you.